Discover the Federation, a non-profit powerhouse making a global impact. Our mission is fueled by passionate volunteers and dedicated donors. Join us in our fight to provide crucial aid and transform lives. Experience the heart of our organization through captivating Star Trek-themed events and merchandise. Witness the power of unity in action and feel inspired to become part of something greater. Start your adventure and make a difference today. Learn how you can help at trekfederation.com/join.
On this episode of Talking About Trek, best-selling author Una McCormack.
Talking About Trek, the podcast frontier, sponsored by the Federation, the International Federation of Trekkers.
Welcome aboard for another episode of Talking About Trek, the podcast frontier. I'm your host, Rob Edwards from the Command Deck. Each episode, we'll explore aspects of the Trek universe, from fans to actors to writers and the behind-the-scenes folks that keep the Trek world flying at warp speed. Subscribe to our YouTube communication channel to stay up to date, and follow us on our social media. Today's guest is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling science fiction writer, and also an associate fellow of Homerton College, Cambridge. Here to chat with us about her Star Trek book ASYLUM, based on the TV series Strange New Worlds, let's welcome aboard Dr. Una McCormack. Hello, Doctor. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you very much. So what inspired you to become a sci-fi writer?
Oh, goodness. Well, I loved watching science fiction as a kid. So I was a big fan. I was growing up in Britain in the 1970s. My favorite TV show was a TV show called Blake 7, which people may or may not have heard of. It's a kind of, it's Britain's answer to Star Wars, which means it's a kind of low budget
Right.
version of rebels and evil dictators, but very low budget. But I did love it. And I played lots of kind of playground games of that and wrote little stories and drew stickmen cartoons. And I just loved I'm just looking at your background now. I just loved a starscape. Yeah.
Right.
And then when Star Wars came and you get that opening, I think there are a lot of people of my age who saw that opening of Star Wars at a very young moment. And that was it. All they wanted to do was kind of blast through space. So it's as simple as that, I think.
Yeah, that really re-energized everyone's vision and dreams about space, right? And then obviously CBS is like, wait a minute, we have something like that. What do we have over here? Oh,
didn't we have a star something?
We have a star something. Maybe we should put that back out there again, maybe, right?
That's exactly it. And then those movies landed again at exactly the right age. So I think it was a great time in the 1980s to be a kid going to the cinema, or going to the movie theatre, because you're getting all those brilliant action adventure family films. You've got Race the Lost Ark, you've got tons of just really fun stuff, and the Star Wars movies were part of that in many ways. So it was the movies rather than the original series. I was too young for that, and it was a bit erratic being shown in Britain. So the films were really my first kind of encounter with Star Wars. Star Trek. You got me. You got me doing it now.
Right.
Star Trek. That's it now. I'm going to be cut out of the.
No, not at all. So let's delve a little bit to more what you were doing. So your first professional published fiction, I think you had A Time and Place, published in an issue of Doctor Who magazine in 1993. And I think that kind of started you more into your path here, being professional publicist here, or professional author, I should say, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that was a bit of a one-off, because that I sort of wrote. And then really I did. So that, like you say, that was 1993. And then really I didn't publish anything professionally again for 10 years, 10, 12 years. I mean, I was writing a lot of fan fiction, a lot of Blake 7 stuff. then a lot of Deep Space Nine fan fiction, and then a lot of Tolkien-based stuff. So I was writing, but I wasn't really aiming for publication. I did think of trying to get into the editorial side at one point, but I instead went down a kind of academic route. Yeah, I was writing, but I wasn't really aiming to be published. And it was only by chance that I think I've told this story a lot, that the editor of the books got in touch and said, I've heard good things about you. Would you like to pitch? And because I've been writing so long by that time, I wasn't bad. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah. I was okay. I was editable.
Yeah, so your fan fiction, obviously writing for Star Trek Deep Space Nine, led you to being commissioned to write a story, Face Value, and for the Prophet and Chain anthology collection, published by Pocket Books in 2003, I believe.
That's right. Yes. So that's exactly 10 years later, isn't it? Yeah. So nothing professionally published in between. I don't know. Might have done some bits and bobs with student paper, that kind of thing. But in terms of sales, no, that was the next one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you had your DS9 novel, Cardassia, and then The Lotus Flower was published in 2004, I believe.
Yeah. So what happened was when Marco Palmieri got in touch, he asked for a handful of sort of short pitches. So he said, I'd love to see something for this anthology that we're doing the anniversary on Prophecy and Change, but pitch a handful of ideas. So I pitched a follow-up to Hollow Men, and he said, well, I like that, but let's hold on to that one because I think that could be a novel. And I've got this other one I'd like you to have a go at. I'd like you to pick up what sort of it was. We didn't call it a season 8, but I think that's the easiest way to think of it. We've got the story of what's happening on post-war Cardassia. So why don't you try that one? And then let's work up this pitch of a sort of follow-up to In the Pale Moonlight, and sort of see if we can get a novel out of that. And that became Hollow Men, which is the one after The Lotus Flower. So yeah, we sort of gave a handful of ideas, and Marco said, okay, well, let's go with this. Let's hold off on that one. Let's try a couple of other ideas first. Yes, that was the journey in.
Yeah, yeah. And you had another book after that. I think it was in 2013. You had a best-selling book, The Fall and the Crimson Shadow, which a lot of folks really, really loved that. I still see a lot of people talking about that to this day,
Yeah, that's right. In between, I did another one, which is one of my favorites, which people have really enjoyed, which is The Never-Ending Sacrifice, which is the sort of story of the Dominion War from the point of view of the Cardassians. And that really stretched what I found out I could do with a novel. It's the story of a little boy called Rugal who appears in one episode in season 2, and then it takes him through what happens in the Dominion War. But yeah, the Crimson Shadow, that really, I don't know what. I mean, when I was writing it, it was like sort of, it wrote so easily. I just sort of flew onto the page. And sometimes I think that just happens. You've kind of built up steam with writing, so you've got your facility with writing you're in a good mode when you kind of start a book, and that one just flew onto the page. And I think that kind of ease and purpose when you're writing conveys itself to the reading experience sometimes. People have loved that one. I think it's still one of my highest rated ones. Yeah. It's a very special book for me because it was my first New York Times best-selling book, and it came out just before I had my daughter, so it was a very very important book for me.
Oh, great timing all the way around.
Yeah, I know, really good. Yeah, it was a good month.
Right. So let's delve a little bit into the story for ASYLUM. So in here, you're going through the history between Captain Pike and his number one, who was never really originally named in the original series at all.
That's right. Yeah. So she's called Una in one of the books, which I take. Well, partly number one, Una. Yeah, okay, and partly I think that was intended as homage to me. A little nod to me. And then the next thing I know, there it is on screen in the subtitles. Oh wow! Okay, I'll take that. Thank you very much,
Exactly.
Mr. Anson Mount. You keep on saying my name. I'm very pleased about that. So I can go. And I mean, I was so excited. I felt, I've said this a lot, but it felt like it's like the prophets had torpedoed me back into the kind of very first moment of Star Trek. I have always been there, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, because they never revealed her
Yeah,
name in the original, so she was just number one. Majel
she's the
Barrett
number
originally
one.
played her, and then they
Yep,
then they had to change everything around to get the series launched
yep.
and everything. But I think they're doing a great job with the new show. So you kind of delve a
Mm.
little bit more into the backstory. He talks about it a little bit in one of the episodes, kind of how they met, but you really go into the details of when he went back
Mm.
to Starfleet Academy. He had a lecture. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the idea is we really thought of it as sort of let's really flesh out this meeting because it's such a strong friendship. And I think that's a really interesting thing in itself. How did this man and this woman have this really strong friendship? Where did this come from? And I think, well, okay, could have been one of her instructors. There's this throwaway line about him lecturing at the academy, and I thought he could be one of his instructors, but I don't like that because, instructing students. So let's get him back for some reason. And I kind of construct some reasons why Pike's having maybe a bit of a crisis of confidence. He's back at the academy, he's kind of resting up after an injury, and he meets this young woman, and she just comes up and corrects him. And that he kind of goes, "What's
What's that all about?
the flipping cheek?" You know.
Right.
Absolutely. Let's have a bit of respect, please, cadets. And she's, no, you've done it wrong. You've done it wrong. And then it's like the grain of sand in, making the pearl or something. It's the right kind of irritation that it generates something really special between them. And in Pike's mind, I think, but I'll go into this in the book, Pike's the kind of person who's thinking, I'm ambitious. I'm going to be a captain. What does a captain need? The captain needs really good crew. The captain needs a really good number one. And it turns out that what I need is somebody going, got to remember the regs, Chris.
Right, right. And a lot of the captains have related this. Someone that's going to give them the
Yeah.
truth, stand up to them, and maybe even tell them when they're wrong.
Yeah, exactly that, exactly that. And what he's recovering from is a situation where there was a breakdown in a relationship between a captain and a number one, that there wasn't trust or there wasn't that kind of instinctive relationship. And he thinks I do not want that to happen to me when in his mind I am captaining the flagship. Yeah. So
Right.
so what I want, and number one's not really although she's ambitious and brilliant and all these things, I never get a sense that she wants to captain a ship. Yeah. She knows that her genius is in it's in detail, it's in organization, it's in making sure everything's running smoothly, it's in having her eye on the ball for everything that's happening. So I think there's even a moment in the book where she's sort of her and Lana going, really, we've got to take a closer look at the menu we offer to diplomats. I don't think she's partly, chef's treats, but partly she's paying attention to it. Nothing is below attention. And that's her skill, and it wouldn't be a captain's skill. It would be too rigid. But it's exactly what a captain needs.
Yeah, definitely. I think her character, a little bit, what you're talking about there, harkens back to Spock a little bit, right? He seemed to
Mm,
be always very happy in his role of what he was
mm.
doing, being a confidant for Kirk, and that's kind of the same thing we're seeing here. You know,
Yeah, exactly,
he relies
exactly.
on her a lot for her opinion.
Yeah, he relies for her opinion that will always be solid, it will always be grounded, and he knows that he knows that the ship will be running, whilst his eye has to be something else, or making strategic or other decisions, all these kinds of things. And while she perhaps is risk averse in a way that he isn't, that's what he's there for. Yeah, he's there to make split second momentary decisions based on what his crew and experts are telling him. So that's part of what he's there for. So they complement each other. And almost the minute he meets her, he thinks, I've got to have you in my life in some way. And as it turns out, friendship and collegiality is the way it goes. So that's really what I wanted to get to, the heart of that, I think. It's a nice story to tell. It's not one we necessarily see very often. I mean,
Right.
we see it across the years. We see that kind of happen. I guess it's not mentorship even. They kind of grow into their roles together in many ways. Pike's a little bit older, but they're both still right at the start of their careers.
Yeah, I like that you give us a little bit of background on the characters, a little bit more kind of how they came about, what their relationships were, and you've done this before. You've given us more background and insight. You had the autobiography of Kathryn Janeway, and also one for Mr. Spock, which were both
Yeah.
great. Give us a lot of
Thank you.
background and insight on those folks. A lot of things that I think people don't really know about them that much. Did that kind of help and inspire you a little bit when you were doing this with Captain Pike?
Yeah, I think it's a fan fiction background, isn't it? Because the reason you like fan fiction is that, you see these characters on screen and you go, oh, we only got 2 minutes of my favorite character this week. I'm going to have to go off and write their entire autobiography. I mean, there is a middle ground, I understand, in consuming television,
Right.
but
And so
not for me.
did they come to you and ask you, we want some background on Janeway, we want some background on Spock. Did they come to you and say, can you put this together?
Yeah, well, I mean, those autobiographies, there'd been two already. There'd been the Kirk one and the Picard one. So Titan were already doing those, and who the next step seemed to be they decided to go with Voyager, so they went with Janeway, and I think they really wanted a woman writing it. And Kirsten Beyer, who wrote the kind of Voyager relaunch novels, was busy writing things like Picard.
Right. She's writing on that now. And also on the
Yeah.
audiobook, Kate Mulgrew is also talking the audiobook here for your
That's
autobiography,
right.
which is great.
Yeah, that was fantastic. So yeah, they came to me for Janeway, and I had a lot of fun with that. And then I think it was a product of lockdown, actually. I think we were all stuck at home, and the autobiography had come out, and Kate Mulgrew wanted something to do. So and she's been wonderful about the book. She's been so lovely about it, and
Yeah, it definitely
just
adds
as
that extra layer when the actual, actor that portrayed the character is reading this audiobook. It just adds that extra layer for you, I think.
Oh, so spoiled. I mean, it was just a delight. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have asked for more. She's wonderful, and it's a wonderful reading. So, yeah, it's just wonderful. And then the Spock one came after that. I think sort of it had been the Spock would have been quite difficult because this sort of discovery had kind of really complicated the sort of what we knew about Spock. So that
Right,
was
they
real
kind of
sort
reimagined what we knew about Spock a lot.
Exactly that, or put in all this material about his early years that perhaps we hadn't seen narrated before. So weaving all that together and trying to make it make sense, and not only was it the original series, but there's everything that happens in the films and the different, how do we honor different timelines. And then I thought, if it kills me, I'm going to get the animated series in here somehow. I'm going to tick off as many of these as I can. So let's get yesteryear in.
Right, because they deem that the animated series is canon. So
that's quite right. It's brilliant. The animated series is wonderful. So I got in as much as I possibly could. I got point of principle. I got in Cybok. Yeah, I thought I'm gonna make this all make sense, and I think I did.
Yeah, did a nice job on that. You've also wrote the Star Trek Picard book, the Last Best Hope. I think that came out before the series, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It came out. They really carefully thought this through. Yeah, so I think it came out between two episodes. I think it was episodes 3 and 4 because you just had your first sight of Varney, and the book picks up on that, and she's quite an important figure in some of it. So I was it came out and I went, wow, they've really timed this. And what Last Best Hope does, it sort of explains the batteries. It's set 10, 15 years before Picard, and it explains the reasons leading up to his resignation, his kind of humanitarian mission to Romulus, and how that goes wrong.
Right, because they really don't tell us about that. So you have to get the book to kind of know that story.
Kind of work out why.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stuff about the synth attack and all these sorts of things. But really, yeah, we see some glimpses of Raffi and Jean-Luc JL sitting outside just as he kind of resigns. She's still in uniform, but yeah, it just takes that as the narrative. You kind of get those few years leading up to that resignation, so it's a bit grim. kind of ends on a downer. But the idea is that you, the reader, at the back of your mind, have always kind of got the more hopeful um, uh, series in mind. So hopefully it's not too bleak.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely liked it. Yeah, definitely. So can you tell us if you're working on anything currently?
Oh, I think I can't.
Okay, so you are working on something currently.
Well,
Okay.
I'm always working on something, but
Can you
it might
tell
be
us what
Star Trek,
universe
it might
it
be something
may?
else.
Can you tell us what
Oh, I
universe
can't
it
tell
may
you. Of course
reside
I
in, or no?
can't. I could be working on my own stuff, of course. That's the other thing. Oh, you see, CBS heard what we were talking about and kind of
She's not. Yeah,
sabotage the connections. No.
she's not breaking her NDAs. Anybody?
Oh, good heavens. No, I'm
She
far
didn't
too
tell
terrified.
us about anything. It's all
I,
rumors. It's all speculation that she's going to be
I,
writing more Strange New Worlds. It's all
I'm
speculation.
still not convinced that I can talk about Picard, to be honest. The
Oh,
NDAs are that tight, so I said, I can't be talking about this. I don't
right,
mind if it's been transmitted.
right. Well, that
No,
series is ended, but
yeah,
that's great.
it has.
So
Yeah.
very you've done so much stuff in sci-fi, going on different universes, from Doctor Who to Star Trek to working at Cambridge and all these different things. You've been a director and a lecturer for science fiction, and you've worked with a lot of folks. What would you say to any aspiring writers out there who are looking to get published, maybe trying to move forward on things? Any words of inspiration for them?
Look, I think you've just got to keep on writing. You've got to write. Try your hand at everything. So don't get set in your mind that there's something specific you want to do. Um, Read incredibly widely and read beyond your comfort zone. Don't just read in one genre. I read literally everything. I read science fiction. I read plays. I don't read a lot of poetry, and I should read more. Um, Read, consume, be interested. Read about story structure. Um, Find some people you trust who can read your stuff, and don't stop. If you've got a short story out, you should be working on the next one. If you've got a novel out with an agent, you're working on the next one. And it might take time, and it might never happen, but just keep enjoying writing, because writing's one thing and publishing is another. Yeah. And it's possible to sort of make good decisions that can get you published. But most of all, you've got to want things that you want to write and things that you want to say. So engage with the world, be attentive, be open, and stick with it. And always try every day, just try and make your writing that little bit sharper, that little bit more precise, and good luck.
All right. All right. All right. Well, that wraps up this episode of Talking About Trek. Thank you to our guest today, Dr. Una McCormack. And thank you to our sponsors, the Federation, the International Federation of Trekkers. Thank you to all our viewers and listeners for tuning in. Until our next episode, ad astra per aspera. Thank you, Dr. McCormack. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.